Welcome to our channel, HASHMICLINICS.
All right, welcome. Today, we're going to build a clinical portrait of a really fascinating remedy, one that I think is often overlooked, Agave Americana. Now, what's so interesting about this one is that its story isn't built on extensive, formal provings. Instead, it's built on a few incredibly dramatic clinical cures that show us its profound action on the nervous system and the blood. Our whole understanding of this remedy really begins right here with this quote. We're not starting with a dry, methodical proving. We're starting with a wild, dramatic clinical case. This single observation, this moment, it literally forms the foundation of Agave's Materia Medica. This is where the story starts. So this case of hydrophobia, which was quoted in the Homeopathic recorder, is pretty much our main source for the mental and nervous system picture of agave. Think about it. It's this raw, almost accidental discovery. It's what we'd call a clinical proving of the highest order, because it revealed the plant's incredible power in a state of extreme pathological excitement.
Let's just walk through the timeline here because it's pretty remarkable. So 4.5 months after a bite, a boy develops full-blown hydrophobia. I mean, so violent he has to be restrained. At this point, they offer him the raw agave plant, and his response is pure instinct. He just eats it greedily. By day 4, he's actually taking nourishment. And then get this, by day 8, his rational mind is back. He finds the plant bitter and refuses it. That right there, that's a huge sign of a deep curative action. And it's this rapid, undeniable response that put agave on the map for us.
And here is where it gets really useful for us as prescribers. These symptoms, the ones observed in this extreme disease state, they become our guiding keynotes for the remedy itself. The quarrelsomeness, the intense fright and deep anxiety, that impulse to bite, this whole picture of agitated mania becomes the central mental theme of agave. So what exactly is this remedy that caused such a dramatic turnaround? Let's zoom out a little bit from this one incredible case and start to build a broader clinical picture of how we can use it. Okay, this is a really crucial point to understand. Agave is an unproved remedy. That means our knowledge doesn't come from systematic tests on healthy volunteers. Instead, everything we know comes from these confirmed clinical cures, toxicology reports, and here's a big clue, from its use as the source of the Mexican drink pulque. The fact that it's used to make a fermented, psychoactive beverage already tells you, hey, this plant has a powerful effect on the central nervous system. So beyond that incredible hydrophobia case, agave has actually carved out a reputation in 2 other really deep pathological states. And this gives us a much wider scope for using it in the clinic. And this slide just lays out that duality perfectly. On the one hand, you have this deep scorbutic or scurvy-like state. It's affecting the entire constitution, bleeding gums and especially those very characteristic hard, swollen, painful legs with dark purple blotches. Then, on the other hand, it has this incredibly specific, powerful action on the male sexual sphere. We're talking about gonorrhea with these intensely painful downward curving erections, what we call cordie, and that awful painful drop-by-drop urination known as strangury. All right, so we've got these 3 seemingly separate threads, the hydrophobia, the scurvy, and the gonorrhea. So how do we bring them all together into a cohesive picture that you can actually recognize and use in your practice? Let's do that now. Okay, the core mental state. It all goes back to that hydrophobia case. That's our anchor. It's a state of quarrelsomeness, fright, and just great anxiety. And here's a clinical pearl for you. Remember this state of high nervous tension and fear, it can be the underlying emotional tone in any case needing agave, even when the person comes in with a complaint that seems purely physical. And when we pull all the physicals together, a very clear pattern just emerges. You see this vascular fragility, right? The gums are spongy and they bleed easily. The whole digestive system is sluggish, poor appetite, constipation. But the absolute hallmark, the signature of the remedy, is in the extremities. Those swollen, hard, painful legs with the dark purple blotches or ecchymoses. And when you see this kind of deep, destructive, scorbutic state, yeah, you've got to start thinking about a syphilitic miasmatic background. It just fits. As clinicians, we all know that knowing when not to prescribe a remedy is just as important as knowing when to prescribe it. So let's do a little differential diagnosis here. Let's put agave next to some of its closest relatives to really sharpen our focus. The differentiation here is absolutely key. So you might think of lycinum, right? Our main hydrophobia remedy. But lycinum has a much more pronounced specific fear of running water and this extreme hypersensitivity of all the senses. Then there's lachesis, which shares the purple discoloration and the bleeding tendencies. But the mental state is totally different. It's suspicious jealousy, constant talking, worse after sleep, and that strong left-sidedness. So while all three hit the nervous system, Agave's unique scorbutic leg symptoms, that's your definitive deciding fact. All right, let's wrap this up by distilling all of this down into some really practical, actionable takeaways, the kind of stuff you can use to confidently spot this remedy when it shows up in your clinic. If you remember nothing else from this explainer, I want you to hold on to these next two essential keynotes. These will bring agave to mind instantly. These are your memory joggers. First, that unmistakable scorbutic leg picture, painful, hard, and purple. You can't miss it. And second, that very specific and intense symptom of painful erections, or cordie, especially in a gonorrhea case. If you see either one of these, agave has to be at the top of your list for consideration. So, to summarize it all, here are your three main prescribing triggers for Agave Americana. First, you've got a mental state that looks like hydrophobia, intense anxiety and fright. Second, a deep scorbutic picture with bleeding gums and, of course, those characteristic leg symptoms. And third, a stubborn case of gonorrhea that is specifically marked by strangury and painful cordie. So we've built this entire portrait from its historical uses, which is fantastic. But it does leave us with a final thought, doesn't it? We have seen its incredible power in states of vascular fragility combined with extreme nervous excitement. So the question is, what other conditions in our modern world where those two elements come together might benefit from this unique and powerful plant? It's definitely something to think about.
Professor Dr. Rafat Hashmi is a distinguished homeopathic physician, educator, and researcher with over 4 decades of clinical and teaching experience. He is widely respected for his deep command of Materia Medica, repertory, and constitutional prescribing, combined with a practical, patient-centered approach. Dr. Hashmi has dedicated his career to training generations of homeopathic doctors, blending classical principles with modern clinical insight. He is also known for his innovative work in digital homeopathy, developing educational content, clinical tools, and AI-assisted systems to enhance remedy selection and case analysis. With a strong commitment to ethical practice and lifelong learning, Professor Dr. Rafat Hashmi continues to guide, inspire, and elevate the standards of homeopathic education and patient care.